Welcome back to Inside the Paddock. This is episode number 18. F1 is finally back from its summer break and headed to the coasts of the Netherlands for the Dutch Grand Prix. It's good to be back, so let's talk about it. Welcome back to Inside the Paddock, episode number 18 today. We are previewing the Dutch Grand Prix, first race back after a long summer break, and we're kicking off into basically the second half of the season. I think we've already been through half of the calendar, but yeah, second half coming up. And right before the break, we saw a couple teams start to surge forward, and should be interesting to see where they stack up after these 3 weeks or so off.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm ready to just see kind of if teams like McLaren can keep their pace going, maybe get a couple good races in, maybe a couple more podiums. I want to see them battle with those upper teams. But then I'm also ready to see what the midfield teams might bring, or even those lower down, because we know that a lot of seats are not secure. So I'm sure there will be a couple drivers fighting for their seats near the end of the year.
You guys think Red Bull's gonna pull a 2009 and just choke the championship?
Max is winning it single-handedly, so I don't
Yeah,
think
just
so.
just pull a Braun, just start losing.
Well, didn't Braun get their glitch thing banned or something?
Yeah, they're
A double diffuser.
Yeah.
Well, I don't see that happening, but we're headed to Zandvoort Circuit. It's a cool location for the track, kind of in these sand dunes right on the beach, and but the track itself not the most interesting. It's a lot of kind of low and medium speed corners, very twisty, very narrow. Anything you want to add about this circuit, Kenji?
I mean, the only thing I really like about Zandvoort is just the fact that it's Max's home track. So every time, well, Max has won twice at this point, but every time Max wins, it's always super, super crazy with all of the Dutch fans. But yeah, like you said, Charlie, it's a bit of a slower track. It's kind of more like a Monaco, even Hungary is probably the closer comparison. It's more of a Hungary kind of track. The average speed, when I calculated it, was 134 miles per hour. If I did the math correctly, which don't trust me about that, but that's pretty similar to the average speed around Hungary as well. So, like I said, very similar track styles. So you would expect that whoever did well in those slower speed corners earlier in the calendar would also do well here in the Netherlands. But the wild card, I think, is also just the fact that it's the end of the summer break and you could have teams bringing in a bunch of upgrade packages. So, yeah. What do you guys think about just the track characteristics? Think it could throw a spanner in the works here?
Yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed personally that we never got to see a Nick de Vries home Grand Prix. But in all seriousness,
Really?
I just don't think that there will be much out of the ordinary. I know that there are some teams coming in with some upgrades like Ferrari and the Aston, but I don't know. I think that I'm not going to make any major claims. I think that McLaren will have another pretty good weekend. I think that they'll just keep their solid race going. And then I am hoping that Alonso can get back up there with the upgrades because he was up in the podium every race. But yeah, other than that, I'm not really looking to see any major shocks this weekend.
This track.
One wild card. Sorry.
I was just gonna say about the track. It's an interesting track. Obviously, you got that turn 4. Maybe is that very steep banked turn, and then the final 2 corners are also banked. So it that combined with its narrowness has I feel like it can add like a element of a spin or a safety car along with all the gravel traps around the track more easily than some other places. So perhaps that level of excitement could be added. And the track kind of flows nicely, but it's, I don't know, not a ton of overtaking opportunities.
I guess one wild card, building off of your point, Charlie, that could contribute to like a safety car or something chaotic like that is the fact that we're expecting rain on all 3 days of the weekend, or there's a chance for rain on all 3 days of the weekend. It's probably not going to be hard, but as we've seen like earlier in the season, rain can definitely throw like a spanner in the works. It can throw some wild cards in here. So perhaps that brings an element of chaos, and we see something surprising this weekend. Maybe Orlando chokes again in the rain, but
Every time.
we'll have to see. We'll have to see.
All right.
The McLaren army will be out this weekend.
Yeah. I love how the McLaren people just say that the orange smoke is all their fans. Just make that joke every time. But yeah, we're looking at Tim, you mentioned Aston Martin and Ferrari's upgrades, and right now they're only 5 points between them in the championship. That's going to be an important battle to see who can hold on to third. And personally, I'd like to see Alonso, fighting at the top again. Obviously, he's had a really great season, and Stroll hasn't. So, yeah, hopefully we can see Alonso fighting for some more podiums with a rejuvenated Aston Martin car. But yeah, also Ferrari, McLaren, how do they fit in? Does Mercedes continue to kind of be more consistent than those other 3 teams? A lot of questions going into this race, and then moving forward in a very different circuit at Monza will be interesting, I think.
Regarding Stroll, I think he does have like an illness he's bringing into this weekend. So that's kind of my concern. That kind of builds onto my concern with Aston. It's just, yes, they're bringing upgrades, but considering the fact that we're expecting rain and there might be some disrupted sessions, does that affect Aston Martin's ability to gain like data? Does that affect their strategy on Sunday? Does that affect kind of, in general, like I said, just their data and their ability to perform well? Considering that Stroll is going to be struggling, and also they're going to have the new data for all the upgrades and have to incorporate that into their strategy. Do you guys believe that Aston will, underperform based on the fact that we're expecting upgrades this weekend?
It depends on how you think they're going to do. I don't know. I don't think that they're going to get any better than... I mean, Alonso could, but at least Stroll no better than than maybe like 5th or 6th. I think that that's probably a good goal for them. I think that if I saw them in the podium or 4th, then I'd be very surprised. But I think to say that Alonso can bounce back would not be a big stretch.
And I think...
Yeah, I think a top 6 finish is I think that's a good goal for Aston, especially considering the fact that Ferrari here should be strong, given the fact that it's a slower speed track, kind of bringing out those Ferrari hungry kind of things. And also Mercedes historically have done well here as well. We saw Lewis was 2nd in 2021. I think George was 2nd as well in 2022. So yeah, I think top 5, top 6 is probably the best that they could do, barring any shocks. Charlie, I'm sorry. I think I cut you off. You have something to
No,
add there.
yeah. I mean, I was just gonna say Aston Martin was earlier in their season. This was a type of track they were predicted to do well at. I think it was more of the slow speed. So if they are gonna bounce back and do bring in some solid upgrades, then it might take place here. They might get a good result. But I'm really interested to see how McLaren kind of, I wouldn't say bounce back, but how did they go through into the second half? Because we saw really great performances in England and Hungary, and then kind of a lackluster one in Belgium when some people are predicting them to challenge for the win. And I don't know if that was like a step backwards or if it was just poor setup, but I want to see maybe just some more consistency or to make sure that they are like at the top, fighting at the top now.
I think McLaren is definitely at the top. I think their struggles in Belgium were just because of the rain. I think because they set up the car more like downforce focus, as we mentioned, due to the rain, that kind of caused them to struggle on Sunday when, the rain didn't actually come for most of the race. So I'm confident that McLaren will bounce back this weekend. It just is a matter of, I guess, how far they can make it up the field, whether they'll be fighting for the podium again or if it'll be more like a top 5, maybe top 8 finish.
Mercedes, I feel like they've just been the most consistently strong team of those between them, Aston, Ferrari. They've got 2 good drivers. Do y'all think they will kind of continue to be that next team behind Red Bull for the rest of the year?
I think so. I think, as we mentioned, Mercedes has a tendency to, I guess, perform stronger at the end of the season than they do at the beginning. We kind of saw that with 2017, where Ferrari started strongly and then Mercedes caught them, and again in 2018 as well. So I'm sure that Mercedes, just if history is any indication, I think Mercedes also has a strong end to the year this time around as well. And as we mentioned, kind of Zandvoort is also a track that they do well at, historically speaking, although our sample size is kind of small, it's only 2 races, but I'm sure that they'll probably at least maintain their consistency. And I think they'll probably get second in the constructors at this point. I think that's all but wrapped up. Just seeing the pace of the other teams contending for that spot.
I think another battle that could kind of be interesting is the battle for 7th in the constructors, between Williams, Haas, AlphaTauri. It's Williams has looked like easily the best team race pace wise between those 4. Haas have been the best qualifying team probably. Alfa Romeo, I mean, the pinnacle of mediocrity, and then AlphaTauri have been ass. So, I think Williams is probably the safe bet here, but Haas is tied with them. Alfa Romeo is only 2 points back. Do you think any of those teams could grab a point this weekend?
I think Alfa Romeo could grab a point because we saw how strong they were in Hungary in the qualifying. I think Zoe was like 4th or something and Bottas was 6th. And obviously the race didn't work out for them, but when you look characteristically at the tracks and you, I guess, extrapolate, we would expect Alfa Romeo to be strong here as well. And I think of all the teams that you just mentioned, Charlie, I think Alfa has the best shot at getting a point this weekend.
Yeah, I would agree with you this weekend. And who knows? If they could get a P7, add 6 points, that could be like a wrap for 7th place. There's no guarantee Williams gets 4 points the rest of the year, although they'll probably be strong at Monza. So Yeah, with these teams, just one good race down the stretch here could secure them that 7th spot. And we saw last year how a team that got 7th ended up getting propelled up the grid like really far. So maybe that extra money is it can be crucial. I think there's some news today that both Haas drivers will return for next season. How do you guys feel about that?
Honestly, it's not very surprising that they did that. I mean, we've seen like a lineup similar to this with like Grosjean and Magnussen with their veterans. I think that that might have been. I think that was what my prediction was last episode when we did the mid-season driver predictions. I think that if a team were to bring in a new driver, although they've done it before, with like Mazepin, but that was different, and then also with Schumacher, I feel like Haas would not be the team to bring in a new driver next season. I think that we'll probably see someone out of maybe like Alfa Romeo or maybe just I just don't. I'm not very surprised that this team did not make any driver swaps.
Yeah, I don't think there was really much of a catalyst to see like any changes at Haas. I mean, their car has been pretty bad the whole year, and the two drivers we know that Magnussen and Hulkenberg, they're veterans. There's not really a reason to replace them at this point. The hope is just that Haas next year, hopefully they can provide a stronger car so that perhaps we see more points finishes for them. But yeah, overall not very surprising.
Yeah, I hope Magnussen can kind of up his performances. He was, I don't know, it was cool to see him come back last year and perform so well. So I'm hoping he can kind of get back on track. What else is going on in the world of F1 right now? We got new Alpine leadership, I believe. Y'all think they're just going to sit there in 6th the rest of the year and be the ultimate midfield team?
Yeah, I do. The teams above them, I don't see them catching them, and then the teams below them are just too far below them that it would take them to just absolutely dominate a couple races, which I see as highly unlikely. So for this season, I don't expect too big of a change, but we'll see how it is come next year. I know this year we talked about them maybe battling with McLaren, and then that went out the window after their double DNFs in back-to-back races. So for this season, I do not think that it will make a difference.
What's the gap between Williams and Alpine right now? Like points-wise?
I believe it's like 46 or something like that.
It's probably
Okay, well, yeah. Yeah, because I was going to say if it's more like, I don't know, like 10 points or something like that, which I know it's probably not, but if it's a bit more on the smaller end, one strong weekend from Williams, maybe like a 5th or a 6th, if they get lucky, it could propel them over Alpine. So if they do very strongly in Monza, for example, which we've been saying, is a very real possibility, I think it still remains on the table. It just depends on that gap, like I said.
Yeah, I think the Alpine, their drivers have been kind of subpar in qualifying. Even when they did have like a much faster car to McLaren, they still weren't both getting into Q3 regularly, I feel like. So I don't see any reason that they would be getting into Q3 now that they don't have a top 5 car. I think they'll be that team that'll be right there to get points and probably get points almost every race if somebody slips up on strategy or DNF, whatever. But I don't see them really trying even to make that many upgrades at this point in the season. I think.
Yeah, so the gap between Alpine and Williams is 46 points. So just disregard anything I just said before. Because I don't think,
Unlikely.
Alpine probably are a walk for 6. Yeah.
Y'all ready to get on to the predictions? I think we've probably gone over every significant team.
Yeah, just like one more thing is that Max has the chance to tie Vettel's record of most wins in a row. I think he's at 9 right now. The current record from Vettel is 10 since 2013. So, yeah, excited to see if he can do it. I think he can, but we'll have to see.
All right, sounds good. I can start off the predictions. Max P1 in his home Grand Prix. I'm gonna give Hamilton P2. We talked about how they've been pretty solid here. So Max, Lewis. I'm going to give P3 to Lando. I think McLaren's going to have a pretty good weekend. I'm going to give P4 to Perez. I don't know. I think he'll be okay. And then I'll give P5 down to Piastri, the other McLaren driver. So I think that the McLaren army will propel their team to a decent weekend. But other than that, I don't expect too much of a surprise. I think that Monza, once we get into that will hopefully be a pretty exciting race. But at least in Zandvoort, I think just pretty ordinary.
Want me to go next, Charlie?
Yeah, go ahead.
So for my predictions, I'm just going to go Max P1. I think it's probably the most. I don't want to repeat what I've been saying the last few episodes, but I mean, he's won 9 of the last. What am I saying? The last 9 races. So, yeah, not much more to add on him. He'll probably win. Second, I'm going to go with. I don't know. It's a hard one. I think Perez was for second. I know he hasn't done well like this season, but now that he's certain that his seat for next year is like secure, I think kind of the pressure has been taken off of him. So he definitely has. I think his problems this year have been more like on the psychological end, especially considering what happened at Monaco and just Miami, and just how that affected him for the rest of the season. So if he's able to work out like his psychological mindset out, I think he could do well. And I think he could be in second this weekend. For third, I'm going to go Lewis because historically speaking, like I said, Mercedes have been strong here. Hamilton's been strong here. I think this could be another weekend where they perform strongly, especially if the rain does fall. For fourth, I'm going to go Lando. Just because McLaren, we know they're a top car or probably one of the top cars at this point. And I think they'll bounce back from what happened at Belgium. I think Belgium was just a one-off for their pace, considering the fact that the setups were a bit different, like we mentioned. For fifth, I'm going to go with Russell, but I think Aston Martin could do okay. I think Aston Martin can score some top 5 finish. I don't know if they can, though. So I'm just going to go with Russell, who I think is a safer bet, considering his pace here in Zandvoort the last few years.
All right. I think I'm going to go with Max P1. I'm going to go with Perez P2. I think he's had a break, go back home, relax, come back, hopefully have a better performance the second half of the season. P3, it's tough. I'm going to go with Hamilton. I think Lewis has been really good this year, and despite him not retiring, as you tried to inform me, Kenji, he has been driving well, and I think he's got the next best car probably. P4, I'm gonna go for Alonso. I'm gonna see if he can kind of bounce back this second half and kind of recover some points for us and Martin. Maybe we'll see if these upgrades can bring some performance. And then 5th, I'll go with. I'm gonna go with Norris. Over. I was trying to decide between the McLarens, but Norris has raced here before. I don't know if F2 comes to this track frequently or if they come at all. I know it's kind of a newer circuit to the F1 world, so yeah, Norris has at least raced on it 2 or 3 times, so I'll go with him for 5th.
All right, sneaky points finishers.
Oh shoot, yeah.
I'm gonna go with dang. Gonna go with Bottas. Was that yours, Kenji?
Yeah, it's because you heard my reasoning at the start of the episode.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was my pick. Sorry, did you want to? I know I cut you off there, Tim. Did you want to finish your reasoning?
No.
Okay. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Bottas. I think Zoe has a good chance too. Zoe, obviously, we know that scrap at Alfa Romeo is very close, and Zoe, I think he's also been a very talented driver as well. So it's kind of a toss-up. Just to be different from Sam, I'm gonna go with Zoe, but not too confident on that pick. But you know, the Alfa Romeo, they do well here on like tracks that are like Hungary, as I mentioned. So not gonna say it again. I think Alfa Romeo can do well here. Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Joe. I think he had a great qualifying at Hungaroring, got 5th, and then just his car wouldn't start, and that also blocked his teammate who was starting right behind him. So unfortunate. Hopefully they can get some points back this weekend. And yeah, I think Joe's. I don't know if he's really underrated because their car is just so mid, but I think he is a good driver and probably deserves to be in the sport. So, yeah, I'll go with Joe to get some points this weekend. And I think that's it, guys. We will be back next week to recap whatever goes down in the Netherlands. And thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.